The PlayStation 4 is Sony's return to core gaming in a big way. The company dominated with PS1 and PS2, only to lose sight of their customer base with PS3, and spending 7 years catching up to the competition. PS4 went back to the company's roots, listening to developers and making a gamer's machine first. It was shaped with the needs and wants of their software makers, and targeted at the customers that brought them to where they are today. A powerful force in the video game industry, let's take a look at over 50 quick-fire facts about the PlayStation 4. The PS4 features a slanted design for two key reasons, the first being the ease of pressing the ejector power buttons as they are staggered rather than being directly on top of each other. The other reason is that the back creates a more discreet profile to hide the cables. PS4 was Sony's first American-led home console, with the outgoing models all being architected by Ken Kutaragi. Longtime Sony partner and game consultant Mark Cerny had asked if he could be the lead console architect for PS4, and the company agreed. In November 2007, before Mark Cerny even asked to lead the PS4's development, he spent his holiday researching x86 architecture and the feasibility of using it in a games console. Once he discovered the recent advancements from the part suppliers allowed x86 to be embraced, then he asked. It's lesser known, but Mark Cerny also led development of PlayStation Vita as lead system architect. Vita and PS4 were worked on concurrently, and it was always part of the plan to have Vita capable of doing remote play with every single PS4 game. PS4 development began as early as 2008 with a much different approach. Sony would now be having frank and open conversations with developers, making them a core part of shaping the next generation hardware. Sony sent out questionnaires to third-party developers asking them what they want in next-generation technology, even though most of the studios knew they were asking about PS4. During development, PS4 was going to ship with 4 GB of memory, but when Sony visited Gearbox, the studio president Randy Pitchford said, "If you go with 4 GB of GDDR5, you are done." Following that, a room of about 30 people continued, saying, "You guys, you never listen, you've never been good at this stuff." Back in Tokyo, Sony then upped the system to 8 GB. Developer Bungie worked closely with Sony on helping shape the PS4 as well. While they were developing Destiny, they consulted on how to make the controller better for shooters. Because of Sony's decision to go with an x86 architecture, the system is dramatically easier to make games for, a huge improvement over the outgoing PS3 and its complicated cell processor. Rumors began circulating in 2012 about PS4's development, and it was reportedly codenamed Orbis. Back when Microsoft initially announced a used game policy and online requirement for the upcoming Xbox One, many gamers kept asking Sony if they would have the same thing on PS4. The company stayed completely silent until E3 2013, where they publicly announced their stance on the topic.
For instance, PlayStation 4 won't impose any new restrictions on the use of PS4 gamers. PlayStation 4 disc-based games don't need to be connected online to play.
That wasn't all though, the company even went as far as to mock their competitor with a viral video on their YouTube channel.
Thanks.
PlayStation.
When Microsoft revealed Xbox One's $499 price tag at E3 2013, Sony employees were reportedly walking around E3 with big smiles on their faces, knowing PS4 hardware would indeed be cheaper. The PS4's launch price of $399 was applauded by consumers, but this came at the cost of the PlayStation Camera, a peripheral which from the very onset was designed to work with the controllers and be packaged with every unit. Sony instead opted for the lower price by selling the camera separately. The first day of PS4 sales totaled over 1 million systems, a new record for PlayStation hardware. When the console launched, Sony lost roughly $60 for every system sold. This isn't unusual in the games business, manufacturers recoup that cost with game sales and memberships, but it actually only took Sony 6 months for the hardware to start turning a profit. Early on, PS4 featured a lot of indie games because Sony was actively courting many smaller teams to develop on PlayStation. Based on the scenario, they would offer free dev kits under conditional agreements or do payment plans. Not only was Mark Cerny the lead architect on PS4, but he was also the director of PS4 launch title, Knack. PS4 had a pretty distinct power advantage over the Xbox One when both systems launched, with many games on PS4 running at a higher frame rate or resolution. Sony's virtual reality PS4 headset, PlayStation VR, was in development as early as fall 2010, being tested internally with a first-person view in God of War 3. It was codenamed Project Morpheus. One lesser-known feature of PlayStation VR is that it can be used to play 3D Blu-ray movies, essentially recreating a movie theater experience by displaying a huge screen and having things pop out at you. The share button and recording feature is a very important part of the PS4 hardware. There's actually a secondary custom chip inside the console dedicated to handling these functions. Much like the PS3, the PS4 came out with very little functionality beyond playing games. Sony's main focus was games and worrying about system software later. As such, things like external hard drives, HDR, file playback, and more came at a later date. PS4 does not support any form of traditional backwards compatibility, but with a system running custom firmware, certain PS2 software can in fact be played. Custom firmware has also allowed the PS4 to run Linux as well. A big part of why Sony hasn't pursued backwards compatibility is that they feel it's just not used nearly as often as people say, while also claiming it's very difficult to pull off. Sony's Jim Ryan stated in 2017, "When we've dabbled with backwards compatibility, I can say it is one of those features that is much requested but not actually used much." 9 months after the PS4's release, data regarding hardware sales suggested 31% of PS4 owners were from Wii or Xbox 360 owners who never had a PS3. Sony released a special anniversary edition PS4 that was designed with the same color scheme of the PS1. Only 12,000 of these were made, but in actuality, a console more rare than that is the gold Taco Bell PS4. It was a potential reward after buying a Quesarito Big Box, and only 6,000 of these systems were made. The PS4 Pro, Sony's updated and more powerful PS4, was initially codenamed as Neo. So you've got Orbis for PS4, Neo for PS4 Pro, and Morpheus for PlayStation VR. While there are some games on PS4 Pro that display at a native 4K resolution, most of the games actually use a technique called checkerboard rendering. So while it isn't true 4K, it achieves a picture quality that closely resembles the high resolution. One insane offering from Sony was the Gran Turismo Sport Bundle that included the game, a PS4 Pro, PSVR, a year of PS Plus, a racing wheel, racing chair, a 4K Bravia TV, and a 2018 Mazda MX-5. All of this for $46,000. The updated PS4 Slim, much like most of Sony's Slim consoles, is not actually called PS4 Slim. Sony just calls the new hardware PS4, while consumers use the term Slim as an easy-to-understand nomenclature. PT, the playable teaser for the now-cancelled Silent Hills game, is considered rare and desirable since it's been removed from the PlayStation Store. There's no way to re-download it if you've never had it before, and if you did but it's now deleted, there's a workaround you can do to get it back on your system, but PS4 systems with PT installed often sell on eBay for a premium. One of the rarest PS4 games out there is Poop Slinger, a game which is not at all considered good, but was printed on disc from a startup company that failed. Before the company closed, they received 84 orders of Poop Slinger, and so 84 copies were made. Poop Slinger now trades for around $1,000 to $3,000. After more than a decade of fans requesting the feature, Sony finally added PSN ID name changes to the PS4, but only PS4 games released after April 1st, 2018 are supported. PS4 games before that could still have major issues. Part of the reason why The Last Guardian took so long to develop is because the PS3 hardware wasn't enough for what the game was trying to accomplish. This is what led the game to being moved from PS3 to PS4 and finally coming out. It took the PS2 5 years and 9 months to reach 100 million console sales, but PS4 did it 2 months faster, reaching 100 million units sold in 5 years, 7 months. PlayStation 4 has been such a massive success for Sony that in 2018, they made more profit in that year than they did for the entirety of the PS2's lifecycle. The PS2 made $2.22 billion in profit, whereas the PS4 in 2018 made $2.81 billion. While Sony and Microsoft are closer in market share for North America, it's a completely different story in Europe. Almost all countries in Europe, Sony is seeing around a 70% market share with PS4. PlayStation Now, Sony's streaming service for PS2, PS3, and PS4 games, is easily overlooked, but in actuality, compared to similar services, it also has the majority market share. Last reported in the third quarter of 2018, PlayStation Now held 52% of total revenue against EA Access, Origin Access Premier, and Xbox Game Pass. You never really notice until you see a side-by-side comparison, but Sony has changed the way the PS4 installs games. It's well known that PS4 installs a smaller portion of the game so you can start playing right away, and it continues to install the rest in the background, but over the years, there's been a dramatic speed improvement. In December of 2014, PlayStation Network and Xbox Live were hit with coordinated DDoS attacks, which brought down both services numerous times, notably on Christmas Day, leaving brand new PS4 owners with no way to connect online. The group responsible went on to attack many other brands and businesses, which eventually led to some of the group's members being arrested and charged with several cyber crimes. Despite PS3 being an HD console, it never shipped with an HDMI cable, making PS4 in 2013 the first Sony console to ever actually come with a supplied HDMI cable. Inadvertently, because PS Vita can remote play any PS4 game, it can also be used as a second controller. While not entirely ideal, you can play two-player games with one DualShock 4 and one PlayStation Vita. Over the years, Sony has added new platforms to remote play on, notably iOS, Xperia Android phones, and even PC. You just have to download the remote play apps on the respective platforms. The PlayStation TV, or PlayStation Vita TV it was called in the East, also features remote play, but because it connects to a TV with a DualShock 3 or 4, it basically functions as a second PS4 being streamed. When Kojima left Konami in 2015, he decided to make a new independent studio, but needed a new game engine. So he toured all of Sony's worldwide studios to see their engines and decide which one he would use for his upcoming game. He settled on the Decima engine from Guerrilla Games, the engine that had been made for Guerrilla's PS4 titles. As of right now, the most sold PS4 exclusive is Uncharted 4, with over 15 million copies sold since the game's original release in 2016. Though God of War, Horizon, The Last of Us Remastered, and Spider-Man are also over 10 million copies sold. The most sold PS4 game overall is none other than Grand Theft Auto 5, around roughly 19 million copies sold, likely to hit 20 million on PS4 alone very soon. Because of the nature of x86 architecture, the PS4, and even Xbox One, is the first console to begin forward compatibility. This is why PS4 Pro is possible, and why every subsequent hardware launch will be compatible back to at least PS4 games. PS4 has not just one, but two separate versions of Skyrim, Skyrim Special Edition, which runs at a native 4K resolution on PS4 Pro, and Skyrim VR, allowing yourself to be fully immersed in the world. Also, if you didn't already know, PlayStation VR can be used for all sorts of things, not just games. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sure you're going to Amazon.com right now and adding PlayStation VR to your cart, and I don't blame you, but before you do that, subscribe here for the best PlayStation news, reviews, and updates that are here on YouTube, and hit that notification bell so you're up to date with everything going on this channel. Also, follow me on Twitter at Mystic Ryan for pictures of my cat, and you should go over there and send me pictures of yours as well, or any animal that you have, because quite frankly, that's how I'm spending my time, and I'd like to share that with you. So that's what I'm doing with my life. I will see you all in my next video, and you take it easy.